Tonight, border restrictions lift for fully vaccinated Americans.
Without the tourism, we've been dying a slow death here.
We'll have more reaction from local businesses hoping this will mean a big boost. Plus,
it's heartbreaking news for our community because it's an understatement to say Bill Davis was beloved in Brampton.
former Ontario Premier Bill Davis dies at the age of 92. A look back at his life and how he is being remembered. And
I love the way on a calm day like this, you can see the mirrors in the water.
Indigenous artists unveil new public art installations and share how their work has been impacted after months of pandemic isolation.
This is CBC Late Night News.
Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. In about an hour from now, Americans who are fully vaccinated will be able to enter Canada for non-essential travel, and they won't be required to quarantine. The move is expected to provide an economic boost for businesses that rely on cross-border tourism. But the process won't be as simple as it was before the pandemic, with travelers being warned of significant delays. Dale Manukduk reports.
Mixed feelings at Pearson Airport about the border opening up.
We're all here now, everybody's wearing a mask. Life goes on.
I think it's great. The world starts to need to start opening up. People need to start living their lives.
There are quite a few cases of virus over there, and I think it'll be spreading this way.
According to the Centers for Disease Control, the United States is averaging about 90,000 positive COVID-19 cases per day over the last 7. That's up 34% from the previous week. And starting tomorrow, fully vaccinated travelers from the U.S. are exempt from quarantine, hotel stopovers, and a day 8 testing requirement. But there are still some guardrails in place.
You have to have proof of a negative COVID test that was done shortly before you arrived at the point of entry. And you do also have to have a quarantine plan ready in case.
The Canadian Chamber of Commerce says the move should boost local business, and that's the hope in Niagara Falls.
We get upwards of 14 million people every year, and of those 14 million, typically 25% come from the U.S., and they represent 50% of the revenue.
The Queen Bean Cafe gets 80% of their business from tourism and are reopening now that Americans can come for non-essential travel.
So much of our livelihood depends on it, and without the tourism, we've been dying a slow death here.
But there's skepticism that a lot of Americans will be coming over this late into the vacation season and with delays expected at land crossings.
I mean, normally right now it's around 32, 33 seconds to cross and be dealt with at the border with the border guards. It's going to be upwards of 5 minutes and random testing on top of that. So a lot of uncertainty.
In a statement to CBC News, Pearson Airport says arriving international passengers should be prepared to wait 3 hours or more to complete the arrival process due to COVID-19 screening requirements. The accepted vaccines for travelers are Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, and Johnson & Johnson. The federal government has set a tentative date for September 7th when Canada will expand travel to all foreign nationals who are fully vaccinated. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
Former Ontario Premier William Davis has died. His family said he passed away this morning of natural causes in his hometown of Brampton. Davis spent more than a decade in office, serving as Premier from 1971 to 1985, and was a key figure in repatriating Canada's Constitution to include the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Here's more on his life and career. One of Bill Davis's early acts as Premier, canceling Toronto's Spadina Expressway, shaped a city.
Save our cities for people rather than sell out to the automobile.
One of his final acts as Premier, extending full funding to Catholic schools, shaped generations of students.
To establish a full range of elementary and secondary education.
But in between those acts, Bill Davis was better known for his calm, deliberate, even cautious style as Premier. He often said in running the province, bland works.
I try to look at it as 13 years of good government, not without the odd mistake, which you won't get me to acknowledge here today.
William Grenville Davis was born in Toronto in 1929. He studied at U of T. He went into law like his father. In 1959, when he was just 29, he was elected to the Ontario legislature in the riding of Peel, now Brampton. He remarried after his wife and mother of his 4 children died. In 1962, he was appointed Education Minister, tasked with expanding Ontario's college and university system while cutting back the number of school boards. When Premier John Robarts announced his retirement, Davis ran to replace him.
Davis is the man for leader.
It was a tight race. In 1971, he won the leadership of the Ontario Progressive Conservative Party on the 4th ballot by just 44 votes. His team of strategists and advisors, known as the Big Blue Machine, helped steer him to victory in 4 straight elections and navigate 6 years of a minority legislature.
Nous rejetons complètement.
Davis also had a profile on the national stage during constitutional talks and when he spoke out for national unity during the Quebec referendum.
I'm doing it for myself, my children, and my grandchildren. I'm sorry if I have sounded a shade emotional, but for me, Canada is worth being emotional about.
In 1984, when many thought he'd be gearing up for a 5th election victory, he shocked many, announcing plans to step down.
This is not the end of an era in Ontario politics.
But a year later, his party's 42-year stretch of power at Queen's Park would come to an end. Davis went on to join a Toronto law firm, but he could never leave the world of politics behind. He advised many politicians over the years, including Toronto Mayor John Tory, who worked for Davis in the early 80s. His name graces the main courthouse in his Brampton hometown. His many awards and honors he received with his self-deprecating style.
I want to thank all of you for coming. I'm not sure why you're here.
A sense of humor he used to sum up his time in office.
I'm sure that when historians write of this period of history to the extent that 13 years will find its way into the history books of Canada, I just hope that some author gives it more than 2 paragraphs.
Politicians across the province and the country, many who knew Davis personally, are grieving the loss, remembering the former premier as a modest man who truly cared about the people. Dahlia Ashry has reaction.
Just how important a figure he was, not just in the history of Ontario, but in the history of Canada.
A dear friend and mentor to Toronto Mayor John Tory.
He was, fundamental to me and to the way I do my job today.
A friendship that endured more than 5 decades. Tory says he will remember Davis for his integrity and kindness.
And he would tell people that he remembered meeting them, and he was absolutely accurate in where it was, when it was, why it was, and he just genuinely cared.
Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown calling Davis a remarkable public servant and recalls taking him to receive his COVID-19 vaccine earlier this year.
He can barely walk. He's 92 and frail, but he wanted to go and walk up to every nurse, every vaccinator, the police officers there guarding the vaccines to say thank you. Just the nature of how he is. He's always a gentleman, always the embodiment of decency.
Others also echoed those sentiments.
He cared deeply about severely disabled people, and he actually started the process of allowing and bringing disabled people into the community and living in community.
He just loved being engaged. He loved being involved. He loved people, and oh gosh, I'm going to miss him.
Premier Doug Ford said the province will be lowering flags to half-mast across the province in honor of Davis. Davis's family says a private family funeral will be held, followed by a public celebration of life at a later date. Dahlia Ashry, CBC News, Toronto.
Ontario is reporting 423 new COVID infections today, marking 3 straight days of increases and the highest daily case count since June. 109 of those cases are in Toronto. Now, meanwhile, vaccination efforts continued this weekend. Almost 47,000 vaccine doses were administered across the province yesterday. Some of those at a new clinic traveling on 4 wheels. Its first stop was in a York Region hotspot, and soon it will make its way to Peel. CBC's Jessica Ng has the story.
This is no ordinary Go bus. It's a Go Vax bus, a partnership between Metrolinx and the Ministry of Health to get first and second doses to priority neighborhoods. It's parked here at Wonderland for the first stop of the mobile vaccine clinic tour. Let's go check it out inside. It's all walk-ins, so no appointment needed.
After you get registration, you're going to come to one of our 8 pods that you'll get the vaccine.
Each pod outfitted with curtains for privacy. Vaccine delivery through the clinic on wheels is reminiscent of snack trolleys on trains.
There'll be a vaccinator on one or the other side.
The vehicle is fully accessible and equipped to vaccinate 160 people a day in this bus alone. It's one of 2 you'll see rolling through the province, and you can climb aboard if you're 12 or over. Being able to educate kids about the vaccine directly at this clinic, what does it mean to you personally?
I'm a father of 4, and we've been through a lot in this pandemic, and the safety of our children is always paramount, so it means quite a bit.
Kids like 10th grader Pierce Samuels, whose mom is covering his and his sister's Wonderland passes so they go to the park and get their second doses.
I'm just trying to have fun today, to be honest. The vaccine is whatever. I'm just gonna get it and get it over with.
As of Friday, the City of Toronto says 193,500 people are eligible and overdue for dose number 2. The next GoVax stop is Thursday at Shoppers World in Brampton. The retrofitted buses will be on the road throughout the Greater Golden Horseshoe 6 days a week through the fall. Jessica Ng, CBC News, Vaughan.
2 men are dead following an early morning shooting in downtown Toronto.
Unfortunately, we located 4 gunshot victims. 2 were fatally shot and as a result was pronounced deceased on scene. The other 2 were rushed to a local trauma hospital via emergency run in serious condition.
Police say the 4 men got into an argument that led to an exchange of gunfire. It happened just before 6 a.m. near Nassau Street and Spadina Avenue. The ages of the 4 victims range from 28 to 43. Police are appealing for any witnesses or people with dash cam footage. And police are searching for a 23-year-old male suspect after a fatal stabbing in Hamilton. It happened just before noon today at a parking lot near Mission Services Men's Shelter.
Our victim was essentially blitzed or ambushed. It was a quick attack with the victim having no ability to protect himself. We are currently seeking the following male suspect. His name is Jaden Shakid Siru. He's 23 years old. He is approximately 5'9" and 160 pounds.
Police say they found a 31-year-old man suffering from stab wounds when they got to the scene. He died in hospital. He's been identified as David Sim from Hamilton. This marks the city's 12th homicide of the year. Police are asking anyone with information on the suspect's whereabouts to contact them and warns he is considered armed and dangerous. CBC News has learned that Liberal MP Adam Vaughan will not be running in the next federal election. Vaughan currently represents the riding of Spadina-Fort York and serves as parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development. He told CBC News this was a family decision and that turning 60 this year has made him reflect on the stretches of life as a parliamentarian.
My mother once told me this before I got into politics. She said, when the fire in the belly starts to go out, get out of the way and let someone else with a reason and a cause and a need to be in Parliament or on the floor of City Council. Give them the chance to make the difference that you saw you needed to make. And I just didn't feel the need for it to be me on the floor of Parliament. This city has lots of great young leaders, and hopefully the voters of the riding I represent will send one of those great young leaders to Ottawa to make the changes that need to be made. I feel very confident that I've made the best contribution I can.
Adam Vaughan has represented the riding of Spadina-Fort York in the House of Commons since 2014. And it's getting hot out there. Get ready for a stretch of high heat and humidity for Toronto and much of southern Ontario this week. Now, the city says it doesn't have plans to open up cooling centres just yet, but says centres will open if Environment Canada issues a heat warning. And they are reminding people to beat the heat by staying in the shade and staying hydrated. And Brampton, you're looking at a live shot of downtown Toronto, partly cloudy overnight and humid. Currently, it's 24 degrees, but feeling more like 32. Let's go now to meteorologist Safia Kambalia. And Safia, it's looking to be a scorcher of a week.
Yes, Kelda, we are on tap for potentially one of the hottest weeks of the summer. Now, first, check out the daytime highs for the forecast this upcoming work week in the red. They're really only a few degrees above seasonal. We've had hotter temperatures this summer, like the 33.8 we hit on June the 6th, but that's not where the danger factor lies this upcoming work week. It's in the relative humidity with a feels like that feels about 10 degrees warmer. I suspect potentially that heat warning could be triggered by Environment Canada maybe Wednesday into Thursday. Better chance of meeting more of that criteria with a feels like over 40 for both of those days. It won't really be until into the weekend when that relief and that more brisk wind is in sight. Until then, there will be a wind, but it's going to be very warm and soupy. And here's why. Big, firm, high pressure rooted off the U.S. southeast. It's funneling in all of that humidity above us. It's also acting as fuel for the fire for the potential of showers and thunderstorms for multiple days for this upcoming work week, especially Tuesday into Wednesday. You definitely want to have the cool indoor plans in place for this upcoming work week. You begin this work week with what feels like 30 or 40. I'll have more in the long range.
Thanks, Safia. After more than a year on the sidelines because of the pandemic, a group of Indigenous artists is unveiling new works. It includes a couple of large-scale public pieces displayed right here in our city that shine a spotlight on their rich culture and history. Dale Manukduk has this story.
A new project was launched in Cabbagetown this weekend, a storytelling mural painted by Niall Migaze Johnson and Monica Wickler.
The Ojibwe people have such a long history of painting on rocks. Look at the pictographs found all over the Great Lakes.
The mural is part of a healing corridor, a project that was a year and a half in the making.
What we envisioned is reclaiming the laneway with storytelling murals, with color, with native species, medicinal plants, and taking some of the empty concrete spaces and filling them with life and with color.
Created by 5 young Indigenous artists, the laneway features other work that Johnson and Wickler helped bring to life.
Indigenous artists to me are more than just artists. They are our traditional knowledge keepers. They are our song keepers. They paint imagery of historic context.
But not only painting, sitting in the waters of the Harbor Square Basin, a reflective canoe.
I love the way on a calm day like this, you can see the mirrors in the water.
Jay Havens created the installation. It was supposed to launch last summer, but was delayed due to the pandemic. It tells the story of the peacemaker who crossed Lake Ontario and united the Haudenosaunee Confederacy.
I think, these stories have maintained our resilience, and it's part of what we've held on to through all the turbulence that's been going on.
Meanwhile, in Stratford, Ontario, Tracy Nepinak is starring in a production of the Res Sisters at Stratford Festival. She says now, more than ever, people are paying attention to Indigenous stories.
Eyes and ears are wide open for listening, for trying to find some understanding about where we come from.
But not all Indigenous artists are thriving. Prior to the pandemic, the province axed a $5 million Indigenous Culture Fund, and lockdowns only made the funding situation worse.
So for us, it's important to kind of make sure that we can provide opportunities for their work to be seen and for them to talk about their practice.
The Cultural Pluralism in the Arts Movement Ontario launched a GoFundMe campaign. Donations will go directly to artists. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
A live look at Ottawa tonight, where Environment Canada has issued a heat warning with high humidex and temperatures above 30 expected over the next couple of days. Safia Kambalia will be back with a look at your forecast for the week. Stay with us. Near to a multi-year deal that has been in the works for days. The 22-year-old guard is the son of longtime NBAer and one-time Raptor Gary Trent. Trent Jr. posted career best numbers last season in 58 games between Toronto and the Portland Trail Blazers. The new contract is for 3 years and $54 million. A look at Niagara Falls tonight, where in less than an hour the border will be reopening to fully vaccinated Americans. A reminder, as travel is expected to increase, officials are telling travelers to expect delays. All right, let's go back now to Safia Kambalia with a look at your long-range weather forecast. And Safia, hot and humid, that will be the theme of this coming week.
Well, Kelda, we are currently at about 25 degrees, feeling into the 30s. It will feel 25 degrees, though, tonight for your sleeping weather. Very soupy. You'll have a southeast wind at about 7 kilometers an hour. It won't cool things down, though. It will be a warm breeze, and you'll have that breeze, that warm, hot wind throughout many days of this upcoming work week. And the humidity will continue to increase as you head into especially Wednesday, Thursday, and into Friday. I'm going to take you through the next couple days in a minute, but I want to tell you the why again. We talked about this a little earlier in the show. Big ridge of high pressure, right, in the U.S. Southeast. It's funneling all of that heat and humidity up to us every single day of this upcoming work week. Okay, next 3 days at a glance right now. On Monday, very hot and humid, lots of sunny breaks, though feeling close to 40. Clouds roll into the second half of the day. As we head into Tuesday and Wednesday, it is increasingly hot and muggy, mostly rain-free, but there is the chance both of those days for afternoon thunderstorms and showers. Gets even more humid as you head into Wednesday, and then Thursday feeling warmer than 40 both of those days. Won't be until the weekend until you have a break from all of that humidity and we head back down to what feels like seasonal values. Now, with all of that heat and humidity in the atmosphere, if we do have rain or a thunderstorm occasionally roll through, it will pour because there is so much moisture in the atmosphere. It is certainly the week, especially if you are anybody with respiratory illness or the young or the elderly, to make some of those indoor plans or plan those outdoor activities earlier in the day. Calda, back to you.
Definitely. Thanks so much, Safia.